Hello, everyone. So we are back with the session of business communication. And in the last session, we have discussed about the factors, some of the some of the causes of physical barriers. Like we have discussed about what is physical barrier. Now, if I ask you what is physical barrier, then what do you understand by physical barriers? Definitely, it is one of the barrier which is affecting the communication process. It doesn't allow us to communicate effectively when we are trying to deliver our message to other person. So basically, if we talk about physical barriers, they act as a roadblock or prevent effective communication. Right, that is what they are. So physical barriers, like if I talk about physical barriers, what are the physical barriers which we face in our day-to-day life? Like it can be some distractions which we are getting from the outside sources. Some distractions are definitely in our control, but there are some distractions which are not in our control. So there are some sounds which are not in our control, like some physical barriers which are not completely in our control. Like if I talk about thundering sound, if I talk about the wind sound, if I talk about the heavy rain sound, these sounds are not in our control, but definitely they are the sound which act as a physical barrier in the smooth functioning, in the smooth transmission of the message from one person to another. Whenever we are communicating, whenever we are sharing the message, it is very important that we keep the surrounding noise free. Why? Because if surrounding is having a lot of noises around that, it is really very difficult to convey the message. What will happen due to the noise? Maybe the other person is listening to you effectively, he is paying proper attention, but due to the sound, like some distraction, as in what distraction you can hear right now, due to this distraction, what happens? Part of the message is not communicated properly. Part of the message, let's say some words just got skipped, some words didn't reach the receiver. So here what happens when the message is not being shared, message is shared effectively, but due to these barriers, there was some distraction in between and some words were missed, didn't reach the receiver. It may lead to entire change of the message, or it may miscommunicate the actual meaning of the message. That's why to keep the communication effective, to keep the communication proper, it is very important that we make sure that the surrounding in which we are communicating, the surrounding in which we are sharing the information is perfect. Let's say the weather is not good. At that point of time, you're using your phone to communicate and there's a lot of distraction in the line. Do not communicate any important information via phone. If still you are communicating, make sure you are sending a mail or any written document so that even if the receiver misses any important information, he can go through that. So before going to the types of barriers, just want you to answer me one thing, and that is, the most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said. Now, by reading this quotation, what comes in your mind? What type of communication is this message talking about? Is it the words? Is it the written words, the oral spoken words, or the body movements, or our emotions, our silence, the space? So it is a combination of lot of things. So the most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said. You should be in a state where you are listening and hearing what is not being communicated by the sender or the receiver by the medium of words. He has not used any kind of words, but he has used some actions, some gestures, maybe his voice, intonation, pause, space, body language. He has used these signs to communicate something else, and you, being a listener, should be one who understands all these things. So it is very important that you do not just focus on the words which you are hearing, but along with that, you focus on the message which is delivered using other mediums. Second, it was about the hearing, that why hearing is important. Hearing doesn't mean that only the words which are entering your ears should be understood. It means along with the words, your eyes are also working. Whenever we are communicating, it's not the mouth or the ears which need to work. It's even the eyes which observes the thing, observes the body language, observes the surrounding, and then help the mind by giving whatever the eyes have understood, whatever the ears have understood, and together the mind combines all the things and gives you the right context of the meaning. So it is very important that you do not just listen to the words, listen to the spoken words. Along with that, you also focus on understanding the things which are not being said. The biggest communication problem is we do not listen to understand, we listen to reply. Yes. The best example of this quotation is whenever we are into the interview, we just listen to the early one or two phrases, and before the interviewer finishes off the sentence and put the question on the table, we just start speaking. And most of the time, believe me, most of the time we get the reply that, that sounds good, but I wanted to know this about that. This about my question was related to this. Let's say he has put in the question that in your entire career, have you ever came across a situation? As soon as he has reached the word situation, the interviewee started speaking like, yes, I have faced one situation where the problems were very critical. There was a lot of conflicts among the team member, and I just solved out that problem. And here his question was, even if you have if you have reached any of this situation, did you took the initiative to address that conflict, or what was the strategy you have used to solve the conflict? Now here he was not interested that whether you have entered into that situation or not. He was just giving you a problem that if you have entered, okay, if you have not entered, what you would have done. So it is always better that listen to the question properly and then answer. Most of the time it is our habit that we usually do not focus on understanding the question. We just focus that someone is saying something and we are just supposed to answer him immediately. We are supposed to fire back the question or fire back the answer. That is not right. This is the mistake we usually do during a group discussion also. Most of the time, we fail in the interview, we fail in the group discussion because we lack that listening skill. Listening skill is a very important part of the overall personality, the judging of the overall personality of an individual, that how effective listener are you, because the person who is a good speaker, and if you do not have the listening skill, he cannot be called as an attractive speaker, because speaking is not just about using your own mouth and speaking out the words. It is also about listening to other person and addressing their thoughts also. It's not just about presenting your thought, it's addressing others' thoughts also. And for addressing other people's thought, it is very important that you listen to them carefully. So because this is the biggest barrier, we have been learning about so many different types of barrier. Like today we'll be discussing about the causes of physical barrier, but the most important problem, the biggest problem, the biggest barrier is we do not listen to understand. Most of the time, we just listen to the people because we want to reply to them. It is not always necessary to put your reply in front of other people. Most of the time, things are just said for you to understand rather than getting a fireback answer from your end. So make sure you understand this thing that yes, listening and hearing, both the things are very important. Hearing the signals, understanding the signals which are not being communicated by the use of words, and being a listener, listening to the things not with the motive of replying, but with the motive of understanding what the other person is trying to say and he's trying to communicate. Now, the first cause of physical barrier is environment. Can we control environment? Can we control the sounds which we get from the environment? No. The environment is completely out of our control. We cannot control environment. We cannot control the distraction we are facing because of environment. These environment factors, what are the things which are included in this environment? It includes this wind, rain, thunder that creates a random noise that cannot be stopped anyhow. No matter whatever you try, you cannot stop the sound, these random sounds which we are getting from the environment. This continuous sound, which is already a part of nature, starts disturbing the flow of the message. The continuous sound which we get, which is the part of this sound is it is the part of the nature which we cannot control. The sound, if two people are shouting, they're speaking loudly, we are getting distracted, we can control that sound, right? But the sound which we are getting due to the natural things like thunder, wind, these are some of the random sound. It may come for a while, it may go. So these are the sounds which we cannot control. These sounds are not completely in our hand, not at all in our hand. So these are the part, these are the already part of nature, and this sound start disturbing the flow of the message. Some physical barrier exists because of the adverse weather condition or improper lightning or sudden thunder distort the proper communication, proper message which we are trying to deliver. Even the unstable temperature is another environmental factor that is again a capable physical barrier of disturbing the flow of message. Let's say why you might be thinking that why unstable temperature? Let's say in case of too high or low temperature, it becomes difficult for the people to concentrate fully on the information they are sending. Let's say you are feeling too hot, you won't be able to pay proper attention to what the other persons are saying, right? You won't be able to pay proper attention, you won't be able to understand the things. So here it is very important that you at times control this temperature is completely in your hand. So whenever you are calling a meeting and you're discussing something important, make sure the temperature of the meeting room is neither too high nor too cold. So make it just perfect so that people do not get distracted due to the high and low temperature. Rather, they concentrate fully on the information they are sending. The unstable temperature is the reason of, this unstable temperature is one of the reasons of creating an unfocused message and result as a physical barrier to communication. You might be thinking that we are delivering so effectively, we are sharing our message so effectively, still why people are not understanding. Why? By seeing their faces, you will realize that people are disturbed. That is, you are understanding by the use of their body language. So you'll be understanding that people are disturbed somewhere. But why? The fact is, yes, the people do get distracted because of these small things. So it is very important that you understand these small things and try to avoid the things which are in a control, like when I'm talking about the unstable temperature. So you have to understand that when you are calling someone for the meeting, you are keeping the surrounding perfect for that person. Making that person sit in a place where he is not distracted by any of these controllable things. Controllable. Why I'm using the controllable word? Because see, the sound of the thunder, the rain sound, that is not in our control, that we cannot control. But this temperature is our control. The external sound is in our control. So make sure you're making him sit in such a place and you are conducting the meeting at such a place where the environment is free, where these things are not affecting the flow of the message. So that was the first factor. Second cause of physical barrier, as you can see on the screen, is the time. Why time? Why time? Why time act as a physical barrier to communication? Sending a message in inappropriate time can be a cause of physical barrier, as the message is not conveyed effectively. Why effectively? Let's say you have an urgent order and you just tried contacting your supplier. You have mailed him today and you're supposed to get deliver the order in 2 days. Right. So in that situation, how we are going to convey the thing? How we are going to, how quick the response should have been from the receiver of the message? That should be within 1 day. And if you're not sending the response in just 1 day, then ultimately you are making the time as a physical barrier for not conveying your message effectively. It is very important that you keep the time of the message accurate, because otherwise what will happen? No, the sender and the receiver of the message both will not be able to communicate at same time because of different time zone. It is the second thing. First is you wanted the immediate reply and you have not got the immediate reply, and due to which you were unable to get the results, right? You just contacted some other dealer and got the things done. Second is the time zone problem. Now you have to make sure that the receiver and sender, if they do not communicate at same time because of different time zone, the message may not be communicated accurately. So again, due to this time zone effect, these message act as a barrier. The time act as a physical barrier. For example, the time zone example, if an individual, a person, an employee from India is trying a video conference with someone in US, then at that point of time, he will have to keep in mind the time zone difference. for direct and effective communication. You cannot just try to contact a person in US as per your convenient time. You have to make sure, you have to find out a time which is convenient for you as well as the person residing in USA. You cannot make sure that, okay, this is my working hour from 9 to 5 and let me just give the call at this point of time. No. At that point of time, it's night over there. The individual, the person residing in USA might be sleeping at that point of time. So time zone again is very important. And if you do not keep in mind the time zone difference, again, you lack communicating properly and effectively. The third barrier is the distance. A person standing at the gate and is just trying to communicate, deliver his message to the person who is on second floor. Do you think is it possible, or that way the communication is going to be that effective? No. So it is just this example of the same place. And now here distance is related to the geographical distance. So another important cause of physical barrier is the geographical distance. Now the people are working virtually. Each and every person is working from their own place. Let's say they all are working from different geographical location. Now let's say if the sender and receiver of the message are sitting at a far distance, then they will have to find out the substitute to communicate. And the substitute will be emails, message, video conference, or the phone calls. These are the substitutes which we find to communicate our message when we are sitting at different places, right? So you might be thinking that when the technology is so advanced, we have so much of good technology, then how these emails, message, when we have the options of using emails, message, video conferencing, so why distance is being one of the cause of physical barrier? You know, this geographical distance, it causes lot of obstacles to communication, because as greater the distance, the greater need for technical challenge. We need these technical challenge, and both the sender and receiver will need additional machinery as a medium for encoding and decoding the messages. Though this technological advancement have made it possible to reduce the noise to a higher degree in channel and medium, but still it was not so advanced that it has eliminated the noise which are causing the distraction while we are transferring a message, while we are sending a message from different geographical location. Let's say you are on a video conferencing and just for a fraction of seconds, you just got disconnected and you came back again. You do not know during that fraction of second what the other person was saying, and the other person didn't even realize that you were not there because he was simply busy showing his screen, sharing his content. And it was just for maybe 30 seconds or 40 seconds that you were not present in the meeting. This way, you might think that, yes, I have gained the entire context of the message, and in that 30 seconds, maybe he has shared something which was very important. Maybe in that 30 seconds, he has shared the deadline, that the deadline is tomorrow. You're supposed to finish up this work by the end of the day tomorrow, and you're not aware about that. Why you're not aware about that? Because of this physical barrier, that is the geographical distance, where we are dependent on the technology, the advanced technology, to communicate our message from one person to another. The second problem is here when we are communicating using the technology and when we are sitting at different, far away and different places. It is very difficult to understand the non-verbal signals which the other person technological advancement, though have reduced this noise up to some extent, but still these act as a barrier to physical communication. It is very important that you, while communicating the message, use such a medium of communication which doesn't affect your communication process. The last cause of physical barrier is technical problem. Most of the work from home is successful for the people who belong from technical field, like software engineers. For them, it was really very easy to continue working from home. Yes, it was easy for them. It was a bit convenient for them that they can work from different geographical location, and they were working very effectively also. The result, the data which we have seen, the quarterly data which was shared by some of the big companies, it showed that productivity has really increased while people are working from home. So this technical problem again act as a barrier for effective communication. Now you might be thinking, like, what kind of technical error can be the reason? When we are sharing a message, there might be some technical or mechanical problems which are quite common and can happen anytime when we are using the technology. So this is the reason that medium should be chosen appropriately, which will have the least chatter and noise on that road. See, whatever technology, whatever thing we are using, one thing is for sure, that we are completely dependent on the technology. And technology is something which can come up with any kind of error at any point of time. You do not know which error is going to come at what point of time, right? We are not aware about that thing, that errors can come anytime. Let's say I'm sharing my screen right now, and all of a sudden I just get disconnected. So during that disconnection problem, let's say I'm not the speaker, I'm just the listener, the technical error occur, or when I'm sharing, some urgent presentation is going on and I do not know what happened to my laptop or to my internet, to my software, that I'm unable to present myself, I'm unable to share my screen. So what you're going to do at that point of time? Don't you think that this technological error again is acting as a physical barrier, and it is not allowing us to share the message effectively? Right, it is stopping us. So these are the 4 types of errors. These are the four causes that we are unable to share our message effectively and efficiently. So what are the 4 causes of physical barrier? Environment, it is something, the part of the environment is in our control and partially it is not in our control. Like when it comes to natural things like thunderstorm, when it comes to the heavy rains, those things are not in our control. But when it comes to controlling the temperature in this room where we are sitting, when it comes to controlling the loud sound which we are getting from the people around us, when it comes to some hammering or some sound which can be stopped, which is there in our hand. So these are the things which we need to look for when we are calling on the meeting. Second cause of physical barrier which we have studied was the time. Time is very important. Now the people are working from different locations. Even earlier also, like part of the team was in USA, part of the team was in India. So you are working with different time zones. So you need to make sure that you are not just selecting any random time or any time as per your preference for communicating your message effectively. It is very important that you select the time which is feasible, suitable for you as a sender and for the other person as the receiver of the message. The next barrier which we discussed was the distance. Distance again is very important. Now people are working from different geographical locations. They are dependent upon the substitutes of communication, that is email, message, video conferencing. Now when we are typing the message, we have autocorrection. We were trying to type something else and it just got autocorrected. So these are the small things which happen and which stop us from sharing the right context and the exact context of the message. And the last cause of physical barrier which we studied was the technical problem. That is again something which we have to look for sharing our message effectively and efficiently. Now, the next thing is ways to overcome the physical barrier. What do you think? What are the ways by which you can overcome the physical barrier? The first way of overcoming the physical barrier is providing open office space. Now, what do you mean by the word providing open office space? Closed working space, a closed working space are designed to act as a physical barrier, as at some point of time employees may have to take the help of emails, phone calls for proper communication. So it will prevent us from taking orders, suggestions, ideas, getting feedbacks, making plans at the right time, right? It will not help us, it will not give us that environment where we can discuss about these things so frequently and easily. So for that reason, it is very important that you promote open office space where people can communicate, can talk to each other effectively and efficiently. So when you are making office space, if you want that there should be regular feedback, the idea should be communicated, should be suggested with each other. You just take immediate help whenever you require any kind of help. Immediately the person is available around you. So it is very important to provide the people with the open space rather than going with the closed workspace if you want to avoid this physical barrier. So the best way to overcome physical barrier in the organization is by providing them the open office space. This is going to remove the visible barriers between the employees, and it is also going to promote direct and open communication. These open workplaces are designed as such a way that the employees can easily communicate and talk to each other. They can easily share the message with each other, and this is going to remove the visible barriers. So make sure, if you want to avoid the physical barrier, if you want to overcome the physical barrier, the first thing which you do is provide open office space to overcome the physical barrier. Second is send short and precise message. Just have the right selection of the words while sending the digital messages or email so that the short message makes communication more valuable. You have to understand one thing, that people never prefer reading the paragraph. You just have to highlight the things in the bulleted points so that people can easily understand the message. If you think there might be some confusion with any of the message which you have written, you can just highlight that thing. You can just write the footnote. You can use the option of writing the footnote so that you are being clear at your part. Along with that, you are also highlighting the message in such a way that it is very short, it is precise, which contains the entire part of the communication process. So you have to understand that the message should be short and precise only. Do not focus on repeating the same meaning in using different words. Do not try to play with the words. Third is personal communication. Face-to-face communication is the best way to remove physical barrier of any form. Along with this face-to-face communication, the other thing which you have to keep in mind is that you are communicating with each other, but in such a way that you do not have those physical barriers around you, that is the noise, the thunderstorm, the temperature, everything is well settled for the meeting. So if you are meeting in person, it is going to avoid a lot of physical barriers. So another best way to overcome the physical barrier is the face-to-face communication, that is the personal communication. Then comes the video conferencing. It will help the business entities in minimizing its relevance on traveling and boosting workplace collaboration. So video conferencing again is one of the best way which you can use to communicate effectively and efficiently. It will help you to avoid the barriers. It will, even help you to communicate yourself using both the it will help you to communicate the problem using both the things, using verbal as well as the non-verbal form of communication. The last thing is ignorance of medium. What do you mean by the ignorance of medium? The signs, symbols, body gestures, all are the part of communication that can convey your thoughts, your meanings, your feelings very easily. And the ignorance of this medium to which a sender is sending the information can be one of the biggest cause of physical barrier. Make sure you are not ignoring these symbols. You have to understand one thing, that people do not just listen to the words which you are sharing, they also focus on the signs, symbols which you are sharing as the part, as the medium of the communication. You have to understand those things. You have to pay proper focus on those. And that is why, if you remember the first quotation which I shared, it is not just about hearing what the other person is sharing. It is also about hearing and understanding the signs, the symbols which the other person is using to communicate effectively and efficiently. So it is very important that you pay proper attention to the signs and the symbols which the other person is using as the medium of the communication. If you ignore those signs, you are not going to get the real context of the meaning, because the words can lie, the spoken words can lie, but the body movements, the gestures, the signs, symbols which the other person are showing is never going to lie. So if you want to get the real context of the meeting, it is very important that you focus on these signs and symbols which are being used by the people during their communication process. With this, we have come to the end of the physical barriers, where we have discussed about the causes of physical barriers. Along with that, we have also discussed about the ways by which we can overcome those physical barriers. If you have any doubt related to physical barrier or any of the barriers which we have done in the previous session, you can get back to me. Otherwise, we are done with today's session. We have come to the end of today's session. Now, in the next session of business communication, we will be discussing about the emotional barrier. Now, there are a lot of different types of emotional barrier as well as the cultural barrier. So we'll be discussing first about the emotional barrier, and then we will be discussing about the types of cultural barriers and how these cultural barriers affects the communication process in the organization. The barriers looks to be very small, but the impact which they have on communication, the impact which they have on passing on the information from one person to another, the miscommunication, partial sharing the information is very big. A small word missed from the communication process can change the entire context of the message, and that is why it is very important to communicate effectively and efficiently. And along with that, trying to understand, being the listener, it is very important for you to understand and observe the body language, the gestures, the non-verbal form of communication which the person is using along with his words to convey the message. With this, we have come to the end of today's session, and now we are going to start with the second session of the day. That is, that is MS Office Basic. So there we will be discussing about the some of the options which are there in the reference menu of the Word. With this, we'll put an end to today's session. Bye bye. Have a wonderful day.